The answer is yes. And that's very typical too.
Okay. Okay, well, we have a few more. Okay, is there a configuration way to assign specific users with rights on an ad hoc basis?
That's a rights question itself. I'm not sure about. Again, we'd have to get back to them on that. Maybe we can make a note of that. If you're asking in Kuali out of the box, as Claire mentioned, you could set up someone on certain days to be an ad hoc approver or an alternative.
And you also can take a transaction, and as the approver, you can, even though it's not embedded in the business rules already in the system, you can ad hoc route it. I don't know if that really answers his question, whether you can, I mean, you can do that on the fly, basically,
yeah.
To be able to send, and you can send it so that that person must approve, acknowledge, or it's just an FYI to them, kind of any time you needed to.
Okay. Well, and this question is kind of related, I guess. It might be related. In order to create a workflow, does one have to have programming experience, or can anyone create it?
Well, again, there's simple changes to workflow where it is you could be probably a non-technical person, make certain types of changes. But again, if you're talking about the splits, the things that one person asked earlier, parallel processing, some of those things will probably take some technical involvement for sure.
Right, and I would say that I guess the situation would dictate that. If it's something where you say, our institution does this a little bit differently, and I want to embed it in the system, and I want to kind of modify the way the workflow comes out of the box on an ongoing basis, that's going to take some technical assistance. On the other hand, if you just want to ad hoc route something on a, like we talked about on the fly or something like that, you can do that as a user, as one of the approvers. But you might need some technical assistance if it's something you want to embed in the system on an ongoing basis.
Okay, we actually have another question or two. Can the action list be customized for your own look and feel?
It can be. Again, it's not something that you need a technical person involved to change it. And again, I think you need to remember here in the action list and other things we're doing, this is going to be the same across all Kuali modules. So again, when we're talking about student or we're talking about, KC, Kuali Koyas, this is the same look and feel that all the modules are going to have. But some people have taken this and added basically their own look and feel based on their access point. They have a common way to get all their applications, and that's where they have changed it.
Okay. Just a few more. Does the workflow support internet access?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you can access all Kuali through the internet. So what we're showing, actually, some of those sample screens, it was all brought in through a browser. So again, you can be, and probably if you don't want to have, if you're a person who likes to keep control and you don't want to have anybody delegated while you're on vacation, you could be on the beach and approving and disapproving anything you want to through your browser if you have internet access.
Okay. Tim has another question. Is there a tool that we would recommend or know of that would help provide visual modeling for creating workflows, a la JBPM?
There's quite a few tools out there. I know I've used some in the past. I'd rather not get into a recommendation, but I would suggest that, again, maybe we want to ask our technical people what they would recommend today, and then get back to that question.
Okay. Good answer. Let's see here. I think that was the last question. Yep, I believe that was the last question. Yes. And if we still have a number of people on the line, does anyone have any additional questions? We have a few minutes.
These have been great questions, by the way, and I appreciate everybody trying and participating. It's nice to have an interactive session.
Well, and actually there was one question that I skipped. Let's see here. There was a question about what does the basics, what does Kuali Rice basics cost? So I assume that's the Kuali Rice basics training. And I'll answer that question. That's, those are tricky questions always, but it really depends on the amount of people that are going to be trained, and it's dependent on budget. I mean, there's a lot to know about Kuali Rice. We can get you up and running with a certain minimal amount of training, but if you wanted to do more complex things, it would take more. So I guess the safe answer is that's custom each time depending on specific need and the training and experience that the people have before they engage with Rice and how much Java, how well developed their Java skills are. But I'd be happy to get with you specifically to take a look at the specific situation to come up with a number that would be a good guess for you, and I will get back with you on that. Let me see here. Is this all Unix-based?
Yes. Again, it's all Linux or Unix. Again, we have some Colorado states running under Unix. Most are running under Linux.
Okay. And William has a really good question. How does the workflow engine handle split workflows if one is approved and the other is disapproved?
It depends on your approval process in that area. If it requires both, then it would be basically held up till it gets both approvals.
Okay.
There are times when you can have it overwritten based on usually in that case, if you don't want it to be both approvals, then you'd have one as more of informational, an acknowledgement, and that's possible within Kuali. To have either for your information, acknowledgement is received to know that that person did open up and review the workflow. But again, if you need both, it's going to require both before it gets processed.
Right, and if someone disapproves, they are required to put a note saying why they did, so that everybody knows kind of what the circumstances are.
Okay. Richard has asked a question. Can you change a document while in workflow? If so, is there version control?
I think the simple answer is it depends on the document, and it depends on the elements of the document. So, as an example, there are certain data elements that, as a fiscal officer, you could change. So you can go in and you can change maybe the account. But later on down the road, somebody else would have an approval authority, but would not be able to actually change any of that account. So it kind of depends on the document, and it depends on your workflow, your specific processes. So I would say all is possible, but you really have to evaluate what you're trying to do on that process and what you want accessible to the approver and what you don't, because you can lock down or open up certain things. Account is the one that's more structured in the system. There's very little ability to change account unless you're the initiator, the fiscal officer, and I think a couple others maybe. Chuck could probably speak to that. But so it depends on your process, and then you would create that scenario.
It's part of it's a role that we talked about earlier too. So it depends on your role. Depends on. But again, if you're asking about version control, there's probably not the version control per se. Claire's answer is correct in the fact that certain fields are, depending on your role, you're allowed to change. Others you won't be able to. If it's something you want to have changed, it has to be rejected and sent back with a note saying, why you want it changed or why you're rejecting it. So that's how you would do it. So the initiator normally would be the one that would have to change something, and that